Welcome to the Deconstructing Data live stream and podcast. I'm Jessie Lezak, fractional CMO at BDEX, along with BDEX's founder and CEO, David Finkelstein. What's new, David? You staying warm down there in South Florida?
Yeah, comparatively speaking, it's cold. Not used to this cold, but it's been a weird day. We lost our power this morning, which is never fun when it's cold out, and then lost the water to our house. So they're doing all kinds of work down the street, and of course they messed everything up. So it's been a weird day, but we got our heat back on, so I'm good to go.
Nice. Yeah, being cold in South Florida is different, but being cold in Ohio is normal. So nothing's really different here. But we do have a guest who's somewhere even colder than both of us that we're excited to welcome on to Deconstructing Data today. She's Tina Nilsson, and she's Optimizely's Director of Product Strategy. And she works at the intersection of product, marketing, and sales to drive digital transformation for a lot of leading brands. I'm going to bring her in. Welcome to the show, Tina.
Thank you for having me. Hello, everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for joining us today on the show. We're excited to have you. And we're going to ask you to kick it off for us and give our listeners and viewers a little bit of background about you, your journey, what led you to become the Director of Product Strategy for Optimizely, and hopefully a little bit about Optimizely as well.
Absolutely. So I have a technical background coming out of the college world and used that to dive into consulting. So I did that for a number of years, doing implementations, managed to then end up leading some of those implementations throughout my years in the business. And so prior to joining Optimizely, I had been leading teams to help implement Optimizely and other familiar solutions with a variety of a suite of tools, Optimizely being one of those. So I was really familiar with the industry itself. So joining Optimizely was great because I was already familiar with the tool set, was ready to really kickstart it right from the get-go. I was able to leverage my experience that I've had, working in the industry. And that's led into working into product strategy, which is really exciting to me. So my role from a product strategy director perspective really allows me this great opportunity to work with our product leaders to bring our strategy to life, and also work with analysts to help inform them about some of the great value that Optimizely brings to our customers. So with that, and as you mentioned, I'm from Minnesota, and yes, it is very cold, but we are all surviving. Everyone can do it, I promise. A little bit about Optimizely, for those who may not be familiar with Optimizely. We help digital teams create and optimize and personalize digital experiences. That is all going to be surrounded by helping them really reimagine the way they work. So Optimizely is a comprehensive digital experience platform that is designed to help businesses create and manage and optimize their digital experiences across a number of various channels. So we include content marketing, content management, personalization, experimentation, commerce, all enabling organizations to deliver relevant and timely experiences to customers.
That's awesome. And thank you for sharing your journey. And I'm really interested in jumping into the first topic. We're looking at retail revolution, it says, data-driven consumer trend analysis. So I'm really interested to hear what you have to share about this, especially as it applies to all the experience that you talked about.
Yeah, absolutely. I spent a lot of time in the commerce space. And personalization, of course, is a key part of that topic too. So when we talk about some consumer trends, and data points that we see emerging in retail, I think it's important to kind of start with that from a discussion perspective. One of them being social commerce. The role of influencer marketing is commonplace for so many brands today. And the use of social media, we all know, isn't slowing down. I think my kids have proven that. I saw some research actually recently that said there's like 44% of Gen Z, generation that's going to discover new brands on social media every single day. It's pretty crazy. So as we start to, and continue to, I should say, expect this seamless integrated shopping experience from a retail perspective, right? Social commerce, I think, is going to become more common. consumers are going to start looking for shopping that allows them to discover and engage and purchase all within their same platform. Rounding all of that out, we were just talking about the generational preferences. They aren't going away either. So I think retailers really need to be cognizant and smart about how they're going to find ways to meet the customer where they want to shop, which is where I think social commerce will really start to take off.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that number is only in the 40% range. My daughter is 22, and I'd probably guess that most of what she learns about any new product, any product discovery for her is probably all on social media.
Agree. Yeah, absolutely. I think the generation is interesting. I have children in that same age range, and so I can attest to the number of conversations we've had about, hey, did you see, this particular product? And I'll haven't even heard of it, and then they'll explain that they found it on, whether it's Instagram, TikTok, etc. So, lot of opportunity, I think, there for retailers when it comes to social commerce. I think the other topic to cover that we certainly can't not talk about is AI. Right? I think it's definitely not a surprise that we're talking about AI from a consumer trends perspective. Many retailers obviously continue to want to use AI, but there's always the data privacy concerns, the quality of the output, and then the transparency, of course, in using it. But I do think that consumers are really focused as we move forward on wanting a conversational shopping experience. So we continue with this overarching theme of, frictionless and integrated shopping. And it certainly remains, and AI is just one of those tools in your toolkit that are going to help your customers be able to receive that personalized experience that we all have come to just expect. It's really a table stakes conversation now. So I think that is also going to remain on the forefront of where we headed, is continuing to make it easy for consumers to shop and buy using AI.
Yeah, I saw a chart today somewhere on LinkedIn. I forget what I don't recall the exact numbers, but it was literally a chart that just showed over the years the growth of traffic from SEO, and then literally it took a nosedive last year, and it's like just a fraction now because of AI. Because of all the when someone's doing a search now, even in Google, all of the first responses are their AI responses, and it's reducing the amount of traffic that's actually going to websites through search engine optimization, because they can get their answer right there in the on the first page of Google through the AI responses. So I think that we're already seeing a huge effect that AI is having on traffic generated to websites that, whether they're promoting some product or service or brand or whatever it is, can be discovered within the AI results instead of having actually to go to that website.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'll continue to have a big impact. I think, another example is AI agents, which are also, if you've done any reading lately in the tech space, that is the hot topic these days, is AI agents. And so, AI agents, for those of you who may not be familiar, is all about using contained logic for autonomous decision-making and proactive actions. And so there's a lot of key benefits to using agents in that regard, whether it's improved automation, enhanced decision-making, proactive problem solving, right? You're going to anticipate the needs and issues before they actually come up. A good example of it from a retail space perspective is, think about, a customer that wants to return a specific product to a store, but they don't want to go to the store. They want to know, what is the return policy for this given product. They might go up to the site, they might type it into the chat bot, asking the question. It may need an order number to be able to go out and search, but think about the ability for that to return not just, a standard answer, but something very relevant. Maybe it's as much as, here's your product, here's the return policy, and here's the nearest locations for you to return that product, whether it's shipping or maybe delivery to another store, because those are new options these days. Think about the ease of use from a consumer perspective to be able to just go ask a question, have it connect to back-end systems to be able to deliver that really easy experience for customers. I think that's where you'll start to see AI agents really start to take off this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I have another question actually, related to, I guess, the first topic. You talked about the trend analysis of, really trending towards social media, trending towards AI. What do retailers need to do? Like, how are they going to adapt to this?
Yeah, I think the biggest way to adapt is thinking about the data portion of what do you need to actually provide those, right? It's a lot about understanding your customer. Where are they shopping? How to meet them where they are. And if you're not using AI these days, you absolutely need to be, right? To remain competitive in the space, I think retailers are really going to have to get on that bandwagon so that they don't start to lose positioning. I know many already have. I think there's still some hesitancy there. But getting on that, leveraging AI as part of that conversation certainly eases a lot of the effort that you're having to put into enhancements and improvements on the site today, and it'll really make it easier for customers. So when we talk about data, it's all about using that data then to pay attention to where those are, right? And how your customers are shopping, that seamless shopping experience, but where are you going to get the most benefit as a business? So once you understand those prime channels of engagement and how consumers are shopping with that data, that allows you to deliver more of that omni-channel experience, right? Whether it's social commerce, whether it's on the website, whether that's in store. So no matter where the customer is shopping, that experience should carry over. If you're delivering that customized experience online, for example, you can share that information in store so that they can receive that personalized experience, which ultimately is going to drive loyalty, right? There's a lot of good retention and loyalty that comes along with the improvement to these experiences using social commerce as well as AI from a trend perspective.
Jess, you're on mute.
Oh, of course. I was saying, so, I didn't want you guys hearing my click clacking. Trying to engage the folks in the audience, which, by the way, if you're watching, plug in your comments and questions. We'd love to hear from you. But yeah, there's no, hiding the fact that I'm a social buyer. Like I buy everything pretty much online, if not like, and the new products I do pretty much learn about on social media because I scroll a lot. But it also, as a marketer, it's a new day because then you can work with these brands and also help them, create content on the platforms like TikTok and Instagram. So it's just, understanding your data and will help you work with the right content creators and also help target those people. You're absolutely right. It's everything. And I think just like both of you mentioned, you are already seeing your kids starting to shop this way. And it's only going to become more prevalent in our culture, which sort of leads us into the second topic, which is personalization prowess. So like, if we get into that, so personalization is not just a first name anymore. It's more than a merge tag on an email or like snail mail. Back in the day, we might think of it. But like, what is it going to become? And how do we start better tailoring those experiences with data?
Yeah. I mean, I think personalization, to your point, is absolutely table stakes. I think our expectations as consumers have exploded in the last few years in particular, around personalization. We all expect to have a business know us. And that's what drives the connection. That's what drives the trust. That's what drives the loyalty at the end of the day. And so I think when we talk about where's the true, value for businesses when it comes to personalization, we can kind of start with the value side of that. It is really about the acquiring new customers, of course, but it's also about keeping the ones you have, right? We all know that the cost of acquisition is certainly higher than it was in previous years. So the focus on loyalty and retention is so important. The way to have that loyalty and retention is through personalization. We also know as part of that consumers, and I think we're all guilty of this, we're willing and ready to switch brands if we don't feel like we're connected. I mean, I've experienced that myself, right? And been in that same position where, yeah, I've gotten an email. Maybe I've bought one thing from a given brand, but I'm not really feeling any connection to it. It was I needed an item, I purchased it, now I'm done. So it's really hard to keep that loyalty. And that's a big part of that storyline. I think in the early years, personalization was such a competitive advantage, right? And we just said it's now table stakes, and customers have come to expect it. The interesting part, though, and I'm sure you all have read some research on this as well, is that as much as organizations are really thinking about personalizing content, there's a lot of customers that actually aren't feeling that it's personalized, which goes back to my earlier comment. So you need to think about the value of using that data we were just talking about in the collection of that data to drive that experience. You know a lot about your customers. So use that information to give them a better and more personalized experience, and meet them as we talk about the omni-channel, experience across multiple in-store, social, online. Find that magic moment to deliver that experience in not just any rule-based, but like in real time. So as I'm a consumer and I'm out shopping on a site, and maybe I've visited this site 3 times because I'm really interested in a given product, but I'm still debating. What happens if I get a promotion that all of a sudden I need to, I can get 40% off that item if I can purchase in the next 2 days? They've seen and watched that I've come back and visited that site numerous times. That's a great way to drive that engagement as you move forward. So some really good successes that businesses can get from a value perspective, because you know your customers. So use that information accordingly.
Definitely.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think that, if you look at what Amazon's been doing for so many years, right? You buy something and then they use that to suggest other things. The technology now exists at a price point where really anybody can do that. They just need to collect the right information, right? They need to collect the right data. They need to apply AI tools to use that data to, analyze what other products somebody might be interested in, and take that from their inventory to show it to someone. This is something that just, for several years we've watched, the biggest giants like Amazon do it, and everybody said, oh, if only I could do it like that. But now you can, it's now all of that capability has come down to a price point where really any retailer can do that now. And so to your point, I think it becomes more and more important for them to do that and apply this, make the investment to do it. The ROI will be there, because if you don't, your competitors are going to, and then, that's going to, sort of hit you harder.
Exactly. And it's about the loyalty part. I mean, think of your own experiences, right, of shopping. Yeah. Amazon is very much a convenience tool, I think, for many of us. Mm-hmm. We've all grown to, it's become the bar for many retailers, right? We all expect that level of engagement, that level of quick. I think we've all lost our ability to be patient with waiting for things. I don't know about all of you, but I'm like, wait, I can't get this like this afternoon. So as we look at like the Amazons of the world, we have tools, to your point, Optimizely being one of them. We've got a number of solutions in our suite that will allow you to meet your customers where they need to be met on any channel, and at that, magic moment or right time, to really help drive that engagement. The tools definitely exist today.
I have to share, like, I can't remember what year it was. It was probably like 2009 or something. It was early on in my career. But I used Optimizely and I loved it. I have to tell you, it was just like, I think there was something on there where you could draw a picture on a landing page. Like you could just like a free form, cut out a tool on a landing page. And you're like, this is where I want to collect data and I want to test this part of it. And I want to do like this button in blue. It's like really the early days of A/B testing. And it was like the first time I was exposed to it. But yeah, Optimize, and it was in political campaigns where I got access to it. So yeah, in the early days, Optimizely was highly involved in there and has only expanded. I mean, I haven't been in there in a while, but just wanted to let you know, I do have a little bit of background on Optimizely. I think it's a really cool tool to definitely check out, but getting into that and, is trust. So I trust Optimizely. So I was like, oh, Tina, she'll probably be a great guest for the show because Optimizely is a really great tool I remember using. But we've talked about on here before, there's almost like a trust pandemic anymore, we've called it. And transparency is such a big problem. And, I trust Optimizely. So I would get in there and just use it. But someone who doesn't might not have that same, desire to want to just start using a tool. Also, there's the ethical customer data practices we want to get to on this third topic, but could you sort of kick us off on your perspective of trust through transparency?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and to your point about doing Optimizely, one, that's awesome. Two, I love that you loved your experience in the tool. And know that today we've broadened that offering with our acquisition of Optimizely and obviously our brand name change a few years ago. And so we've broadened that, and we have a whole suite of products to help you, as mentioned, whether it's online content management, experimentation, commerce, etc. But yes, transparency. Do you remember the old like give and get conversations that you'd have? You probably still have them today. But if I give you something, or I'm willing to give you something, I should say, if I know I'm going to get something in return that's valuable to me, it still exists, right? This still holds true today. There's so many customers today that are willing to actually share their data and their information, knowing that they're going to get a better experience. According to, I think it was like Smarter HQ, if I was reading recently, like 90% of customers are actually willing to share personal data to get a cheaper and an easier experience. I mean, 90%, that's pretty outstanding when you think about how willing we are to give that to be able to improve that experience. And so that transparency is all about, give customers a reason to interact, share that, gather that information. And obviously we have challenges today from a transparency and trust standpoint. Data privacy continues to be a concern. We've got the whole cookie, abandonment occurring as well. So the focus on zero and first party data as a method of collecting that information from customers will be key as we move forward.
100%.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of that. Exactly what you described. Offering, it doesn't usually take very much. Offering a small discount or something to your customer in exchange for the ability to track certain data about them, that ultimately you're doing. You're sharing that transparency and saying, look, we're going to collect this. We're not going to share it with anybody. We're only going to use it to make your experience better. And to your point, 90+% of the time, people will say yes. That sounds great. I will absolutely do that.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think we're seeing this playing out at a larger scale in the US too, right? Is like, should people be saying yes to just like, giving up their data? And it's like, should it be a choice? Whatever. But yeah,
people give up their data every day because, every website you go to, there's a button that says, we're tracking some information about you. Here's our privacy policy. Everybody just clicks it. Nobody reads the privacy policy. So they're doing it blindly,
It's
so
very true.
Yeah. So if they're doing it blindly, then they're absolutely going to do it if you're going to give something to them in exchange for it. And the benefit you get then is, just the ability to use that data to, not only make the experience better, but by making that experience better, you're going to drive more revenue.
Absolutely. Okay. So question to both of you. When you get the pop-up, that's accept all, reject all, pick your preferences. How likely are you to actually say yes to many of the preferences, or do you do like marketing only?
I usually accept all.
Yeah. Most times I just do accept all, unless I'm like visiting a competitor's website or something like that. Then it's a reject all.
Then it's a reject all. I actually tend to just like stick with the minimum. I don't want to give them any more than, even though I work in this space and I understand the value, I end up defaulting to my I'm trying to keep something of my own.
Keep something of my own.
Just something, anything.
No, I appreciate the question.
It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun. When we talk about, zero and first party data across the board, I think a lot of customers are probably curious as to what exactly that means as well. So first-party data would be inclusive of things like data that you already have in your CRM system. So a customer's actually called in, or a customer's made an order. So you have that in your ERP. So this is just data that you naturally have collected about that person. This has nothing to do potentially with online engagement. But it also can be something as simple as engagement from a survey, or maybe if they've given feedback. It could be signing up for a loyalty program, right? That's a way of them, that's a really standard way of a give and get, in my opinion. I've got a lot of loyalty programs. I'm sure you all do as well. Even online chat transcripts. So as you're having a chat with a customer service agent, saving that, you understand what that customer has, asked about, inquired about, maybe complained or praised about. Leverage that data to then, deliver a better experience. And then there's always the in-store purchases. Those are all examples of first-party data that you can start to collect directly from your customers. So there's a number of opportunities. And then there's the zero-party data, which is the data that the customers are openly and intentionally sharing with you. So again, this is the surveys. Creating an account is a great example of that zero-party data, right? They're willing to give you information because they want an account. Maybe it's ease of use of coming back and reordering, understanding where shipping is in a given purchase they've made. But that allows you, those are real simple, easy ways for you to start collecting data that doesn't just have to be online based. And I think that's a key part to that transparency story as well, is think of the entire picture of that customer, right? It's not just their online experience and their behaviors. You know a lot about your customers, and leverage that data to really drive forward, to be transparent with them about how you're using that to give them that better experience.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, such
absolutely.
a great point. And what a great time to learn about collecting first party data and making sure that you are doing everything, especially small businesses, because we can't just rely on any one platform, as I know I very much learned this past weekend when one of them went down. But we've had a couple comments come in, so I want to make sure we get to them. So Victoria Johnson was saying, have definitely fallen victim to Instagram ads. Their personalization can be borderline creepy though. And we've definitely talked about creepy advertising on this show before, because you do need to be careful with what you say, your messaging, right? And then Layla, all the way from South Africa, I wanted to ask, what are key factors businesses should consider when collecting customer data? And how can businesses strike the right balance between personalization and respecting customer privacy?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
I think, some of the key factors that we need to consider when you start collecting that data is make sure that you are thinking about that give and get, right? Make it valuable. Because if it's not valuable to them, they're going to find it creepy, right? They need to look at it and say, this is expected that you're going to be presenting me this information because I know I have been researching X, Y, and Z. I think Amazon's a really easy example of that. When you're out there searching for, vacuums, the next time you come out, you're going to get vacuum bags, you're going to get fresheners, etc. Like, you get everything associated with that vacuum as part of that experience to help you engage even further. So definitely think about that from a consideration perspective. And how can businesses strike the right balance between personalization and respecting customer privacy? It's be clear about, we're using this information to provide you a better experience. It is about that terms of use. It is about allowing them to make the decision, as we were just discussing earlier, who does what in terms of accept all, reject all, set the marketing preferences. All of those are ways that I'm making a decision. I'm in control. And I think that's the way we can help to balance customer and consumer privacy. Let me make the decision. You can ask for the information. I'll make the decision as to what I'm comfortable with. And then you can use that information to give me a better experience. But I still get to remain in control. And I think that's a big part to that storyline of balance.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Absolutely. And actually, there's one other key factor that I'd want to add is making sure you're securing that data, because nothing kills trust like getting that data leaked. And so securing that data means not only securing your servers and things like that, but also the personnel, just understanding who inside your company needs access to that data and therefore has access to it, not making sure that, everyone doesn't have access to it, only those that need it, and keeping it secure, even when those people leave, to make sure that it never gets out. Because once that data gets out, you've lost all that trust that you've worked so hard to gain.
Absolutely. I think data governance and that protection is absolutely key. And I think we've all been involved in those experiences where we get the notices that data has been leaked.
Yeah.
And it absolutely breaks your trust. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it happens over and over again from like big companies, it seems like. And I've lost trust from a few of them, it's yeah. Anything else from either of you on trust and transparency? I mean, anything on a positive note, maybe that we could end with viewers on, like, where is their hope with all of this? Like what do you think? What do you think, David?
I mean, look, I think the positive thing is that if you do things right, if you have the right data governance in place, if you have the right, level of personalization, respecting the customer's privacy, all the things we've talked about, then you're going to be able to build a really good relationship with your customer that can last a very long time. There's, people have a lot of loyalty to brands that they like and trust. And, if you build that level of trust, as we've talked about, you can have a very long lasting relationship with your customer that will be very profitable. So the positive is that if you do it right and you take the right precautions, it can be very, very fruitful.
So great.
Yeah. And then I wholeheartedly agree with you. I do think there's governance in this process, and there's being cognizant of your customer base. Again, your customers the best, right? You're asking them, you're engaging with them. What would the appetite be for personalization? And balance how creepy might it be for them to just get a random ad versus, hey, presenting them something of content that they've engaged with that relates and is relevant. I think the more your success in personalization is going to come down to relevancy to the customer, because ultimately you build that connection, which ultimately builds the trust. So if you kind of think of it in that chain of events, leveraging data as the source, and again, putting the governance there, that ultimately is going to allow that trust and that connection to be built. And again, back to the loyalty conversation, it absolutely is achievable. We have many customers today that are leveraging personalization, that are achieving 50% higher subscription rates on their given products, just by implementing some personalization as well as experimentation. Jesse, as you mentioned, the ability to have this test and learn mindset as well when it comes to personalization. I say that we all know our customers. You all know your customers well, but we only know them so well, right? We still are making assumptions. It's still a hypothesis of, if I go and put this personalization on the site, is that going to drive the level of engagement? Is it going to cause the action that I'm hoping for? Having that test and learn mindset is also a key piece to that strategy, to allow you to have data to really make a data-driven decision about, is that working? Is that not working? Where do I need to adjust? So you have to really put some of these pieces together, from a creation of the experience to how are we delivering that, to then analyzing it, to really be able to know that you're going to be successful and see that, right? And tie it back to some good business metrics. So there's a lot of pieces there, but it's absolutely doable. And there's always a maturity scale, for folks that haven't done much personalization, to those that are at the enterprise level and doing a lot of it on a daily basis.
Yeah. And we've got one more question. How can smaller businesses with limited resources still prioritize data ethics and transparency? What would you say to that, Tina?
Yeah. How can smaller businesses with limited resources? I would honestly look at it and say, the good is that your amount of data, hopefully, is manageable. As part of that, I would look at using AI to help you with managing the analysis of that data. So as we talk about some of those data ethics, making sure that you're only paying attention to a portion of that data. When we talk about personalization, and we talk about unified customer profiles, and that's your best way to provide personalization, that's really an ideal state. So from a small business perspective, think about personalization. Look at some of the pages that your customers are visiting most. Think about the impact that you might have on a given segment of customers that are doing a particular action on that highly trafficked page. Focus on that, and then reverse that into what data do I actually need to deliver that personalized experience. You don't need everything you have to be able to do a lot of that very initial personalization. So think about it from a phased approach. That will allow you, as you think about data ethics and transparency, to kind of grow into that. That goes back to that, a bit of that maturity model mindset. So don't get overwhelmed by trying to tackle everything at once. Take it in bite-sized pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree 100%. We've talked about, I've had guests on here where we talk about, some of the complexities of what you can get into, especially when you talk about data governance and ethics and all of this. But the reality is, to your point, keep it really simple to start off with, especially for a small business. Like, look at one thing that you want to do. Pick the one thing that you think will be the most effective. Or test a few things and figure out which is the one that is the most effective. Concentrate on the one thing at a time, and expand from there. Don't try to do too much. When you try to do too much, spread yourself too thin, and mistakes start happening. Data gets leaked, things like that. Agree 100%, Tina. One thing at a time.
Exactly.
Great advice, both of you. And those are great questions too from the audience. So we only have a few more minutes. So if you have any more questions or comments, be sure to plug them in. Because of course, before we miss tech stack again, like we did last week, we'll hop to it. Tina, we'd love to know, what are some of your favorite tools in your tech stack?
I was thinking about this, and honestly, I'm kind of boring. I'm kind of sad, like that I need to obviously expand my tool set. It's some of the obvious ones. So Microsoft Teams, heavy usage internally, leverage it. That's where a lot of my communication happens. So I've found that we leverage that much more than emails these days. It's just easier to ask questions and communicate back and forth. We also use, and I use our own content marketing platform, our CMP platform. We use it to create content. We have generative AI capabilities as part of that product, so it can give you new ideas. So I leverage our CMP as part of the broader team to be able to create content and then manage that content throughout. We have Opticons. Opticons are a big event. We have multiple. This last year, we had 3 different Opticons, Stockholm, London, and then San Antonio. And so they're very large scale events, thousands of folks that come in and join us for that event. And we organize all of that through our content marketing platform. So the creation of each of our sessions of content all are stored. And so we leverage that tool pretty heavily. Outlook, the standard. Salesforce, of course, pretty standard. I can say I live in PowerPoint and Word pretty heavily. Those are PowerPoint in particular. And I use Notepad for a lot of my organization. So, pretty much sticking in the Microsoft realm, to be fair.
So okay. Not a Mac person?
Funny enough, I run on a Mac, but I end up using mostly Microsoft tools, which is, isn't that funny?
That's too. I guess I do that too. I have a lot of
I do too. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's a balance. It's a balance.
It's a fine balance of multiple worlds. Well, that's really great. Well, I suppose, we've got 5 minutes left. Should we get into a post-topic question, David?
Yeah, we can do one quick.
Let's do a quick one. Okay, so Tina, if you could go back to a time when you first came in to the industry, what is the number one piece of advice you would give yourself?
I love this question. Because it was only a couple years ago, right? Dating myself. I would say if I could do if I could go back, it would be reminding myself that I could do anything I set my mind to, right? The world is your oyster, as they say, right? Keep learning every chance you get would be the other piece of advice, because technology changes so quickly that if you don't keep up the pace and keep up that learning mindset, you'll pretty quickly fall behind, because there's just always new things coming around. So stay on top of things, keep learning.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great advice for yourself and great advice for our listeners. Hopefully some will take that advice and run with it, so that they never look back and say, I wish I did that.
Yeah, great
Thank
point.
you for sharing.
Absolutely.
Well, in closing, Tina, would you like to let listeners know how they could find you?
Yeah, the best place to find me is out on LinkedIn. So you can search up Tina Nelson out on LinkedIn. I will certainly come up in your search results, or I should, and you can find me under Optimizely as well.
Awesome.
Awesome, Tina. Well, we thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a great conversation, and I think our listeners got a lot of great information, and we got a lot of great questions that hopefully everyone's pleased with our answers and our responses. And I'll let Jesse close us out.
And I will do that. And I'm going to start by putting the QR code up on the screen. But of course, if you're listening on podcast, just go to bedex.com. And we want to invite you to get powered by Bedex and build your authentic connections with your audience and drive unprecedented engagement in 2025. It's time, to really harness the power of AI and just think of, the power of AI and what you can do if you do learn from your first party customer data and go learn from it to find more people like that with AI. So we want to help you craft your audiences that truly resonate with your brand and ensure you hit your marketing effort every time. So we want to help you bring you closer to those marketing goals, and we're eager to guide you. Just scan that QR code or go to bedex.com and click on Talk to an Expert and get powered by Bedex. And for those of you who are curious, we would love to hear from you. If you have any feedback about the show, or if you would like to be a guest or know anyone who would make a great guest, just email us at info@bedex.com and share your qualitative data with us so we can make the show better for you. And thanks again, Tina, for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. It's been great.
Absolutely.
Thanks.